We're good. Hello. Welcome to Archaeologists Behaving Badly. I'm Belle.
I'm Raquel.
And this is episode 22.
Yay! 22. We made it.
We made it. We made it. We are doing an episode with a medical theme.
Yeah.
So sort of anything to do with medicine, medical issues.
In history.
Yeah.
Kind of sitch. Nothing to do with medical stuff happening now. Avoiding all that conversation as possible. So.
And it's me.
Yes, you're going.
So medical archaeology is actually a subfield of archaeology, but it's pretty new, which is why we wouldn't have heard of it, really.
No, I've never heard of that before.
It's actually a new subfield of archaeology that analyses things like surgical tools, human bones, and ancient DNA to study the history of healthcare and medicine.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Archaeological evidence of medicine's tools and medical waste is fairly rare, but provides us a lot of insight into medical practices from the past. More so the distant past, because we know a fair bit about what was happening in the past few hundred years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I am talking about a site called Soutra Aisle, and it's near Edinburgh in Scotland.
Cool.
So Soutra Aisle, I'm sorry if that's not how you say it, was founded in 1164 by King Malcolm IV and was a complex consisting of a church, a friary, and the largest hospital in Scotland at the time.
Wow.
And I'll send you some pictures of what is remaining of it.
Wait, so when, sorry?
1164.
Wow, okay. So a long time ago. Okay.
It was known at the time as the House of the Holy Trinity. It was built close to the Via Regia, which was the main route from the north to the borders abbeys, and it was run by Augustinian monks.
Okay. So not only like monks, but also physicians?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
They were operating the hospital.
Yeah, cool.
When archaeologists started excavating, they encountered a thick, gooey black substance, which tests later confirmed was human blood.
Ew.
These were the remains of blood pits where Soutra's medieval doctors would empty human blood and other medical waste, which was really well preserved in Scotland's wet soil.
Ew. So like just pits of blood.
Yep, blood pits. Included in what was preserved in the blood pits is toxic ingredients and spores of contagious diseases.
Well, that's where it would be, wouldn't it? I'm sorry, that's fucking disgusting. Gross. Blood pits. I didn't know that was a thing. I guess now that I think about it, where are you going
to put it somewhere?
How are you going to dispose of it? Actually, I've never actually thought about that.
Yeah.
Disposing of like medical waste.
Yeah. Blood and bits.
Blood and bits.
Dr. Brian Moffat is an archaeoethnopharmacologist, and he's the director of the investigations at Soutra. And he's described the method that they use is to trawl literature from the period for remedies and find medical waste to support the theories.
Okay.
So, like, to make the connection.
Right, okay.
So I have a list of some
Okay.
of the things that they found.
Okay, cool. Let's do it.
The first one on the list is painkillers. So one of the medicines discovered is a mix of hemlock, henbane, and opium poppy, all plants which are lethal.
Yeah, very much so.
One medieval manuscript says that this combination could put a man under for up to 3 days if he woke up at all.
So a coma. We're talking about a coma here. So basically you can induce a coma and hope for the best and hope that they wake up. Okay.
So this concoction was used as a general anaesthetic to knock patients out before surgery, the results of which, mainly amputated body parts, were also found.
Wow. Cool. Again, linking stuff. That's really cool.
When you can. That's
Yeah.
the whole point
Yeah.
of why we do what we do, but
It's nice when
it
we
doesn't
actually...
always happen.
It doesn't always happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So number 2 is parasite killers. So parasites would probably have plagued the guts of many medieval people. I woke up at like 2 a.m. the other night and just had this surge of like all of my physical, mental, emotional issues, everything. I must have a parasite. So then I spent like an hour and a half in the middle of the night researching parasites and researching parasite cleanses I could do.
Oh my God, a little mentee bee.
Yes, had a little breakdown at 2 a.m. And when I woke up in the morning and got up for work, I was like, Belle.
Belle.
You idiot.
You silly little... Oh my God, that's so funny. No, but like, I get it.
I mean, it's still a thing.
Parasites are definitely they're definitely a thing. Gross.
So at Soutra, they found the eggs of parasitic worms in the drains, but they also found alongside them a mix of tormentil, which is a herb that can help with parasites. And it also contains tannin, shinovic acid, and glycosides, which alleviate diarrhea and internal bleeding, which parasites can cause.
Okay, so that's like a really cool discovery that shows that, okay, we think that this person has this thing. If they knew that they were parasites or not is a different story, but they actually had a cure for it.
Yeah.
Or they thought that they had a cure for it.
And they've found this cure.
That's very cool.
With eggs in the drains.
That's really fucking cool.
The third one I've got is disinfectants. Quicklime is a caustic chemical and disinfectant which the archaeologists found throughout the blood pits, the aforementioned blood pits, suggesting it was deliberately mixed in, either to deal with the stench.
Okay. Yeah, fuck, that would have been...
Or it could have been used as a disinfectant in like the preparations as well. Or both.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because that's a whole other thing. Keeping these places clean when you're conducting medieval
surgeries.
This makes me really have gratitude and thankful
For sure.
for the time that we live in. Yeah.
Oh, dental stuff particularly.
Okay, but you and I have most people I think have it. When you're
I have a legitimate phobia of the dentist.
deathly afraid of dental. Yeah, I'm not okay. I remember we worked on a site. That's how we met years and years ago. And I remember you coming to work that morning.
Because I had to go.
Yeah, and
dentist.
you were inconsolable. Like you were just freaking the fuck out.
Normally I have to take Valium.
I'm like, Belle, tell me what's wrong. What's going on? And you're like, I have a dentist appointment. And I was like, oh, fuck. Okay.
I get it. Yeah.
I get it.
No, you can often find me before my appointments just sitting in the waiting room sobbing.
The last time I went to the dentist, they gave me liquid Valium because they were like, you need to calm down. Like, you need to calm the fuck down. And they gave me, and it didn't, in hindsight, it probably helped a bit, but I was still an absolute mess. And they were like, just a little bit more, Raquel. Just calm down. Anyway.
Where am I?
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Everyone wants to hear about how terrified we are of the dentist.
Yeah. I've been they've taken out my, what are they called? Your
wisdom teeth.
Your wisdom teeth. I've had 4 taken out awake
I vaguely remember that.
and they had to saw them out
Oh, no.
while I was awake. And I went into shock
Oh,
and the assistant had to hold me down. And I remember the dentist apologizing to me quickly right before she did it. She was like, I'm really sorry. And the dentist held me down and she just got that circular saw. Yeah, sorry. Graphic, sorry. And I went into full shock.
I can imagine.
And then afterwards it was just like, on your way.
It's not all right.
But then I think about it and I go, at least it was all done at once. I didn't have to go back. I didn't have any issues.
I don't know that I would ever recover from that.
I mean, I am traumatized from it. Fully traumatized.
I had all mine out, but I was under. So
I couldn't afford to go under. And I didn't have private health insurance. So I just was like, and the guy said to me, I don't know, one of the guys working there, he was like, oh, you're a woman. You'll deal with it fine. It's the guys that don't deal with it as well. Women have like a higher pain threshold.
Absolute dick.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, side note. Crazy.
Yeah, outrageous. The fourth one I've listed is diet pills.
Oh.
Archaeologists at Soutra also found the remains of a plant that is a species of pea called Lathyrus linifolius, and it's a mostly forgotten herb that was used as an appetite suppressant, and it was used for centuries.
Ozempic, anyone?
Often by farmers who were having problems with crops, or just as food was pretty scarce until the 18th century when the potato became a staple.
A thing.
Yeah.
Wow. I had no idea.
And I read on, because I went onto this particular plant's Wikipedia page, and they are trying to like mass produce it now as a diet pill. It's in, I don't know. It's not out on the market, but they're trying to.
Oh, like a new like herbal, you've got.
Yeah.
Wow. That's huge. That's crazy.
And it also may be the plant eaten by Roman soldiers in the Battle of Dyrrhachium in 48 BCE. I guess they didn't have much food.
Maybe
So
she's
they
just
were
less
just
hungry.
like making them feel less hungry.
That's wild. Who thought that this episode would be so interesting? That's crazy.
5, my eyelashes stuck together. Hold on one second. Let me get myself together a little bit. A hangover cure. That's actually worse than the hangover.
Oh.
The Augustinians mixed toxic seeds from dog's mercury, which is a type of plant, with liquids left over from salt making to induce a 2-hour bout of vomiting and diarrhea.
Wow. So that's like a tactical, like a tactical vom. A medically induced tactical vom.
If you're not from Australia, because I don't think a tactical would be a known thing anywhere other than here, a tactical is when you have drunk too much and you just go and have a cheeky spew so that you can keep drinking and carry on with your evening and not have to go home.
And that says a lot about Australia, doesn't
It does.
it? And about our drinking culture. As I drink my beer here.
Number 6, uterine stimulants. So Augustinian monks, because they were men, were forbidden from practicing midwifery. But even so, archaeologists found ergot fungus, which Raquel talked a little bit about in the last episode, and juniper berry seeds together. Medieval texts suggest they were used to induce labour or abortions, and it is in fact now known that ergot can cause a violent contraction of the uterus.
I mean, I think ergot can
do a lot of things.
But yeah, wow. But also, like, that's the thing. Like, women often get overlooked in these times and these things because, like, a lot of men, like, especially monks, obviously couldn't, work with women for obvious reasons, but then, you know, it's also everyday life, daily life of people and communities, and these are things that obviously happen to 50% of the population.
Yeah.
And it just shows that, you know, people needed to be looked after.
Did you see that thing? I can't remember if I sent it to the ABB Instagram and posted it, or if I didn't. I might not have posted it, but it was a ancient Egypt, like a list of reasons people hadn't come into work that week or something.
No.
And one of them was that his wife was bleeding, so he had to stay home and like do the chores and stuff.
Oh, I kind of love that.
Yeah.
And on that topic, I actually spoke about this, I think in the Egypt episode that we did forever ago.
Forceps?
Yeah.
And it's like still the same type that we use today.
Yeah.
They invented them.
Yeah, I think it was in the Temple of Philae. I could be wrong. Could be a different temple. But there is inscriptions of birthing instruments, including forceps and other like birthing like instruments that they used. And we often just forget about that. That is such a normal part of life.
Yeah.
That most women back then, especially, maybe not as much now, but most women back then, you know, went through.
Yeah.
And you often don't hear a lot about it.
No.
You know, you just don't. It's not like advertised. But anyway, I thought that was
No, it's really interesting. And with this one, so they found the ergot fungus and juniper berry, and they know what those were used for.
Yeah.
But the excavation also uncovered some stillborn babies.
Whoa.
So there were
holy shit.
like births or abortions happening there.
That's
which they weren't supposed to be doing, but
wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, this site sounds really, really interesting.
Super interesting.
And the last one I wrote was watercress. So one of the stranger finds was piles of teeth.
Reminds me of a site that we worked on.
With the remains of watercress. And the teeth didn't have indications on them that they'd been pulled out.
Okay.
And so they found some texts that suggests that watercress was used to help stop loose teeth falling out, because the vitamin C in watercress is enough to reverse scurvy, which caused loose teeth. Oh. So the loose teeth would have been ones that they couldn't like save.
Right.
But then they've got watercress there to like reverse the scurvy that's causing the loose teeth in the first place.
That's crazy.
Very cool.
Very cool.
And that was the last one for that. So archaeologists are still studying the medical waste left at Soutra, and there are still new discoveries being made. But it's a really, really important site for understanding medieval
medical history.
Medical practices, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, really cool. And it's a beautiful old building as well. It's like falling down a bit, but it's like a big hall. I think they said it could house like 300 people at a time, or maybe that was the whole complex, which was the hospital, the friary and the church. Wow. It was like 300 to 400 people at a time could be there.
So that would be like the main place, the main point of call for people in the vicinity to go to if something was wrong.
In that region. And yeah, I said I think it was the biggest hospital in Scotland at the time.
That's insane. We, Belle and I worked on a site. It's not the site that we worked on, but there was like a sister site being dug at the same time. I'm not going to give specifics because I don't think I'm allowed to, but in the city in Melbourne. And one of the things that they found was a pipe. And in that pipe was a whole bunch of disgusting, rotted teeth.
It was just filled with teeth.
Filled with teeth. And I think there was supposed to be a dentist there.
Yeah, and so they were just pulling teeth out and chucking them down the drain.
Yeah. And apparently they were gross as fuck. And I remember hearing about it at the time and being like, thank God I wasn't
Thank God we're on the sister one.
Thank God we weren't on that site, because that would not have been okay for me. Anyway.
A friend said she was cleaning them.
Oh.
With toothbrushes. Like,
yeah, because that's how we...
That it was a surreal experience, brushing other people's teeth. True. But she found some with gold fillings in them.
Oh, wow. Actually, on a site that I work on, also in Melbourne, we found dentures.
Really?
Yeah. And that was gross enough. I have a vague memory of it. Yeah. It was a couple of years ago now.
Yuck.
Very yuck. Many yuck. Much yuck.
Much yuck. And then I just wrote down a few, just because it was interesting, ancient medical procedures that are still used today.
Oh.
So the first one is, it's not a procedure, but aspirin. So the bark of the willow tree contains a substance that in its modern form is aspirin. More than 3,500 years ago, the Sumerians and Egyptians both used willow bark for pain relief. In ancient Greece, Hippocrates told his patients, take 2 pieces of willow bark and call on me in the morning.
Wow.
And Pliny the Elder advocated its use in ancient Rome. In the mid-1800s, scientists refined willow bark into the compound salicylin, which was refined again at the turn of the 20th century and called aspirin.
Wow. See, not everything was bad in the past. Sometimes we did know things and we used them appropriately.
And we still use them today. The next one I wrote down.
I just think about how many hangovers were happening, like in ancient Greece, ancient Rome. Like
probably more hangovers than happen now.
Yeah, and just just pop a couple of aspirin, got a headache.
Go and chew on some bark.
Get back to me in the morning. You'll be right as rain. Mm-hmm. Love
that. Sutures. So the oldest known suture is in an Egyptian mummy dating from 1100 BCE. Stitching up a
dumb Raquel here. Yes, I know what you're talking about. Yep.
In 500 BCE, the Indian physician Sushruta, wrote a medical manuscript describing how to perform surgeries, and in it described sutures with tools including triangular, round-bodied, curved and straight needles, and sutures made from flax, hemp, bark fibre or hair.
Wow.
The Roman physician Galen, who performed procedures on gladiators, was the first to describe gut sutures in the 2nd century AD, and he advocated the use of silk as the stitching together thing.
Wow.
Yeah. And there was another one I read, but I didn't write it down. Maybe somewhere in Persia, using pig bristle, like pig hair.
Yeah.
The next surgery, cataract surgery.
Oh God, no. Okay, this is one thing besides from teeth. Anything
eyes.
To do with the eyes. I was talking to someone I know recently and they just got surgery done on both of their eyes. And they had said that it was actually really great. They put you under for 3 minutes. Didn't know they could be so precise. He couldn't believe it. So the anesthesist put them under for 3 minutes exactly so that could put in anesthetic into the eye, and then they would wake up and they would do whatever.
Whilst awake?
I think so.
Yeah.
But they couldn't really see.
Yeah.
And it was like, I don't know, the way that it was described to me was, it was just like you couldn't really see what was happening. It was kind of like blotchy and whatever. And it was done within 15 minutes. And so they would do each eye 2 weeks apart, so you could, but it was apparently extremely easy, non-traumatic, and that blew my mind because the thought of anything going even near my eye is
I have a similar thing, maybe not as freaked out
I think
as
for you, teeth is me with...
Yeah. But that's why I don't wear, because I wear glasses all the time, except for not when I'm filming. But I've never been able to wear contacts.
I've tried.
No,
I can't do it.
It's not good. Okay, so cataract surgeries. So again, Sushruta of India, 6th century BCE, he documented the standard cataract procedure, which was called couching. I don't know why. This involved... poking an instrument into the eye to dislodge the cataract where it falls into the eye's anterior chamber out of the patient's line of vision. So they wouldn't actually remove it. They would just move it.
Okay, so all I can think about is in the 6th century in India, how small of a needle could they have, like what
was the instrument they were using to push it?
And how were they doing this with such precision, I guess, is where I'm coming at with this, because that is terrifying. I'd be like, nah, fuck it, I'm just going to live with it.
This remained the standard cataract procedure until the mid-18th century.
Jesus Christ.
When a French surgeon introduced extracapsular cataract surgery, which I don't know what that is. And then it's changed a few times since then to what it is now.
Wow.
Yeah, but it remained, that's what they did for them for like a couple of thousand years.
I wonder how many of those people went blind.
During the procedure.
Because of the procedure.
And the last thing I wrote about is morphine. So morphine is the active ingredient in opium. It's still obtained from harvesting poppies through a method that has pretty much not changed in 8,000 years.
Oh my God.
Carved tablets from Mesopotamia dating to 6,000 BCE mention poppy, calling it the plant of joy.
I bet.
And references to poppy can be found in ancient medical texts from Egypt, Greece, Rome, India, and China. And obviously we still use morphine today, and we have synthetic versions of it. But yeah, that's been used in human history for 10,000 years.
That's insane.
Which is pretty crazy.
That is pretty crazy. I guess, you always hear references to, the poppy seed. I especially knew about it with, in China and stuff like that. But, yeah, again, our knowledge of plants and their uses, either that being positive uses or negative uses, that's been a thing forever. But then scaling that to as a proper medical practice is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's really interesting.
That was so interesting.
That's me.
Cool. Okay, so I wanted to start with talking about lead.
I'm really into lead poisoning and the madness it caused, but Raquel is obsessed with lead. Obsessed.
What happened with the lead? What's happening with lead, guys? I feel like I mention it every single episode. It comes up in some random...
But what about the lead?
But what about the lead? How many people were losing their minds and dying from lead poisoning?
A lot.
That is the question that obviously I keep wanting to get answered because
Maybe you need to do maybe if you do a PhD, you should do it in something to do with lead because you love it.
I do love it. Research, come at me. Lead poisoning, yeah. So we've mentioned it a couple times. I think we mentioned it in the curses episode.
Yeah.
You were talking about like curse tablets.
Yeah.
They're made out of lead, and they would often throw them in wells.
Yeah.
In their own wells
Yeah.
sometimes.
And we definitely, I think we talked about it in Cruel Rulers, maybe.
Fuck, episode 1.
Maybe.
Wow.
Because, well, that's a thing. Like ancient Rome.
Yeah. They loved it.
They loved lead.
They loved lead. And then it kind of brought us, I think we also mentioned it, I think in the Roman episode I was talking about how, did I mention it in the Roman episode? I don't know. I was talking about something and lead came up, and the thought of how many people actually lost their shit in history due to unaware lead poisoning issues.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, it was probably huge.
Yeah.
So it was recognised as early as 2000 BCE that lead was toxic. So they had known about it. Some had known about it
Yeah.
as far back as 2000 BCE that it was toxic in some areas of the world. And it's amazing how knowledge can get lost or
Ignored.
or manipulated
Yeah.
over time and throughout geographic spaces and time spaces. Like, it's just kind of fucking crazy how we can take 2 steps forward and like 10 steps back.
Yeah.
So the Romans used lead a lot.
Yeah.
Particularly in their pipe systems.
Pipe systems, cooking,
Yeah,
like
cooking.
utensils and pots
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
And they called lead plumbum, which is where we get the word plumbing from.
Huh.
And I did not know that.
No, didn't know that.
They used it in makeup, in contraception.
Oh.
Now, I didn't look further into that because I just couldn't quite
No,
get myself to do that.
Let's leave that.
But we can imagine. And they even used it as sugar to sweeten food.
I actually read about that.
Is it not true?
No, it is. It's because it's a substance called saka, which is made from grape juice, like boiled down grape juice. That was used. So the Spanish in their wine used something else to, maybe it was to stop fungus or something like that. And so this saka stuff they used to stop something from happening to the wine. The Romans did. Like, it had a similar effect, but it was also really sweet. So it ended up being used in heaps of cooking. But the reason that they would boil the grape juice down in lead vats for it. So the wine they were exporting all over the empire had lead in it because of this stuff added to the wine. And it's being added to like all of their cooking. They were using it as a sweetener.
Yeah. Is that what we call it, monosaccharide? Is that
Maybe
what it's
it
called?
comes
Sugars?
from that.
Isn't it saccharide?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's I have to.
Maybe there is a
fact check
connection
that.
between those two.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So they were
literally ingesting it any way possible.
any way possible. Give us all of the lead.
Yeah, give us all of the lead. Yum, yum. Lead poisoning, yay. So, yeah, when it was recognised in 2000 BCE as being toxic, they actually thought that it caused chronic plumbism. That's what they called it. And reported that it caused colic and anemia, which is really interesting in the second half of what I talk about, because there are some certain things that they ended up using to try and treat that, which is interesting. Say interesting again. Interesting. So archaeologists did a study, and they found that there was 100 times more lead in Roman tap water than there was in the spring water that they were ingesting. 100 times more. That's insane.
That's a lot of lead.
All I can think about, honestly, is just every person just being a little bit fucking crazy. Mm-hmm. And then think about that, the implications of that, of like societies just being, and everyone is being like dosed and all having mental issues.
Serious ones.
Serious mental issues.
Yeah.
Not only just health, like physical health issues, but like just the way of life would have been. I just think that that's very interesting and a crazy thought.
Yeah. Well, when Raquel and I were talking a bit about lead before, as we do before we started filming.
My topic of choice, apparently.
It is. And I looked online and just found myself in a Reddit thread about how in Europe people avoided eating tomatoes for a couple of 100 years because they were using pewter plates or bowls or something, and the acidity of the tomatoes would mean that the lead, and pewter has a really high lead content, the lead would leach into the tomatoes, so then it was making everyone really sick, so they stopped.
Incredible.
And then there's another little bit after that someone else added, which may or may not be true. It's Reddit, who knows?
Yeah.
But that it was like knocking people out but not actually killing a lot of them. And so when they would go to reuse the caskets, because that was done often,
yeah.
there would be scratches all on the inside because they'd buried people alive accidentally.
Because they'd be in like comas, essentially.
Yeah. And so then that's when they started adding like a string and a bell to
the
graves,
coffins.
to the coffins, so that if someone wasn't actually dead, they would. This might be completely wrong, or it may be true but have nothing to do with the lead and the tomato situation. This is just something someone said on Reddit, so I don't know. But yeah, if someone woke up in there and they were in a grave, that they would ring the bell and the night shift grave person would come and dig them up.
That's insane. Was that something to do with like the graveyard shift or something?
Yeah, they said like that's where graveyard shift comes from and dead ringer comes from.
That's insane.
As sayings.
If that is true, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was just tangenting.
Because
so I don't know if it's true or not.
It's also a good point. Like, why would you need people on graveyard shifts at a graveyard? Do you know what I mean? Like, why would you need personnel at a graveyard at night? Except for maybe to make sure that no one was looting graveyards. But otherwise, why else would you need anyone there?
To hear if anyone's alive in their grave.
Imagine just hearing. You take a moment and just imagine if you're, and then you just hear a bell going on, and you just have to find where the fuck that bell's coming from, and then dig. That's insane. Or even worse, imagine like if you wake up from a coma and you're just
in a box,
and then you just find a bit of a string, and you're like, "Hello." Anyway, crazy. So that was just a little bit that I wanted to talk about. I didn't have more time to like really go down more of a rabbit hole on that one, but it was, lead was used in everything.
Yeah.
It was used everywhere. It was used in makeup. It was used on people's faces. It was ingested in every way possible. And I think that's really important to consider.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about Victorian era healthcare. So in Australia and in Melbourne, where Belle and I work, in historical archaeology, which just means like European,
like colonial
archaeology here, we come across a lot of like medical vials, medical bottles.
Both European and Chinese.
Absolutely,
Lots of Chinese medicine bottles. They're really cute. They're really
small.
tiny.
Yeah. We find all sorts of things like in terms of like medicines and, you know, pharmaceutical kind of things. And they're really quite common in assemblages that we dig on. That we dig, not dig on. And some of them are really interesting because sometimes you'll find little like ointment bottles and they'll often be cure-all. So they'll be like, this cures, you know, this ointment cures, and it'll be like the most random shit, like a list of random shit that have nothing to do with each other, like leg aches and like sore arms or like... and they'll just be completely...
Rashes.
Yeah, rashes.
All of the things.
All of the things. Cures all. And you find them all the time. And I know that like work crews and stuff get really excited when we come across them. But I guess for us, we're so desensitized to finding them.
Yeah.
They're not as like exciting. But it really shows how much of these pharmaceutical products were actually being used across at least Melbourne.
Yeah.
In the Victorian kind of era where we're looking at, just like basically the 19th century.
Yeah. And there was just heroin or cocaine in
everything.
Everywhere. All of them.
All of the things.
Yeah.
People just getting high.
Yeah.
Without even knowing that they're getting high. Pharmacy kind of brought healthcare to the common folk or the general population in the Victorian era. Whereas before this, pharmacies didn't really exist. It was just the people who could afford doctors would see doctors. And so the mass population of people didn't really have any kind of real access to healthcare.
Huh. Yeah, I've never
in the
thought
same
about
way,
that.
except for maybe like, you know, common like hospitals and stuff like the one that you were talking about. Otherwise, there wasn't really any access to it. And so this brought a significant change to society during the 19th century, like the early 1800s. And so these products were individually tailored to the patient depending on whatever their ailment was. Doctors, scientists and pharmacists were all coming up with new ways to cure people, to help people, to make money off of people.
Of course.
Of course. And they often used old beliefs, basically, in terms of like healthcare and curing as part of their medicines. And also, anyone could set up a pharmacy back then. You did not have to be a doctor. You could literally be anyone that had enough money to open up a pharmacy.
And then what? Just like make up?
Yeah. You could just create a pharmacy. And I actually saw it came up.
That's why there's heroin and cocaine in all of those medicines.
Exactly.
Because
yeah.
They're just peddling that.
100%. And I saw online, I'll put a photo of it up. They're very rare, but they're called, I think they're called like pharmacist canes or something. And they're like a walking cane, like a walking stick, but it opens up. And so you open it up and it's got different compartments for different vials, for gauges, like for bandages.
That's so cool.
Yeah, for needles. And there's like, and you open it and there's like different compartments. Very, very cool.
That's really cool.
I'll put a photo of it up. The video that I saw had like found one that was like very well preserved and it had everything still in it.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. And so what these pharmacists would do is they would go and visit you and they'd open up the cane and whatever you needed, they would give to you at a cost, obviously. So I just thought I would talk a little bit about some of the remedies that were used during this time. And one of them, which we see often in movies and stuff, which obviously was used before the Victorian era, but continued throughout, were the use of leeches.
Oh, bleh.
so disgusting. I've had one leech on me before. I can't remember where I was. It was me and Nelly, and I freaked the fuck out.
Yeah, I think I've had a couple, but yeah, it's awful.
It's so gross. But again, I never really thought what the reason was of why, like, they had used it in history. Was it just to get something out of the body, like a poison out of the body? But it turns out that early Victorians believed that the body was storing too many humours, one of these being blood. So the act of putting leeches on someone wasn't to necessarily get a poison out of the blood. It was because they thought that person had too much blood.
Right.
And I guess I was just thinking common sense here, thinking that they were thinking that they were getting something out of the blood.
But they were just getting out the blood.
Yeah, they
Amazing.
needed to. I know. I think that was incredible because I was thinking, yeah, I get it. If you've been poisoned, I can get the rationale. But turns out that wasn't the rationale. The everlasting pill. Have you heard of the everlasting pill?
I feel like I've heard the name, but I have no idea what it is.
It's a very popular, tiny little pill that was given out, and it was a cure-all. Oh, okay. One of those. And it was made out of a very toxic metal called I didn't spell it. Antimony, I think it is, or antimony. I'll correct myself and put it up there. I had to look it up because I'd never heard of it. But it's just a metal.
It's just a poisonous metal.
It's just a very poisonous metal. And that was called the everlasting pill. And they would just give that to people.
So interesting.
So arsenic for anemia. Huh. So arsenic was given to patients who had anemia.
From lead poisoning?
Probably. Fucking probably. It was also cured. It was also used to cure syphilis, anthrax as well as anemia. And it could be inhaled, ingested, or injected, or enemas.
Arsenic enemas.
Arsenic enemas. There's a tongue twister for you. That was a really common cure back in the 19th century. Laxatives were also used for chicken pox. Laxatives for chicken pox.
They just had no idea what they were doing. They were just doing anything.
And that was just used to purge the body. They thought if you could purge the body, you would get rid of chicken pox. And I think they really missed the mark on that one. And also, the pox, they'd only last for a few.
So that's probably why they thought it worked.
That's what I'm saying. They probably thought it worked because they're give them this shit, and then it's gone in
a week or
whatever it is. It must be working. Couldn't just be your natural body's reaction to getting rid of it. This one I actually had to ask you about because I didn't.
Shoo!
Bless you.
Sorry.
That was really cute.
I was trying to hold it in. Oh no, I snorted.
No, I snort all the time. Peter makes fun of me all the time for it. It's all right. We're with friends here. What? Okay, is it strychnine?
Yep.
Strychnine. Strychnine is a poison. Didn't know this. And even small doses can cause convulsions, very serious convulsions. It's a very toxic substance.
I think the only reason I've heard of it is because of my obsession with murder mysteries.
Right, yeah.
And so, the more old-timey murder mysteries, there are strychnine poisonings.
There you go. I recently watched Shutter Island, and I have a feeling that was mentioned. It might not have been, but something.
But it might have been.
But it might have been, and that's all that matters. And it was thought to provide improved gastric function. Opium and turpentine was also used. Yeah. For gastric function. Turpentine. Can we just again take a minute to think about, by the way, this is a common thing. Turpentine was a common thing used in these cure-alls, which is just insane.
Paint thinner.
Hiccups. Chloroform was used.
Oh, God.
It just gets more and more absurd as we go. And inhaling smoke was used to cure asthma. That could be tobacco or cannabis. But inhaling it, that was the key.
I feel like that's not good for your lungs.
Yeah.
And if you have asthma, your lungs are struggling already.
Yeah. And I guess if you're smoking cannabis, then maybe you're just too fucking docile to
have an asthma attack.
Have an asthma attack, or maybe you're just feeling good, so you're just saying that you feel good. Because how can you not correlate those two? How does one not have an asthma attack after ingesting inhaling a mass amount of smoke? Insane. And I cannot read my handwriting. I actually cannot read this. This is really funny.
For kids.
Sorry. For kids. To ease colic. So for kids to ease colic, ammonia, turpentine, and belladonna, which is a very poisonous plant, by the way, was used. So we were giving kids literally ammonia and turpentine, and a very poisonous herb. And that's another thing. A lot of these, there were a lot of kids' remedies, especially for colic. And just general kids' ailments. And arsenic, turpentine were some of the main ones that I saw. Cocaine was used.
Yeah, it was.
For alcoholism.
What?
Morphine addiction. Depression. Anxiety, migraines, and fatigue.
Everything.
Just for everything. Basically any ailment you had. Cocaine would fix it. But just for alcoholism and morphine addiction, I think is pretty funny. Okay, let's get off morphine. Let's give you cocaine instead. A bit of coke and you'll be fine. Incredible. And there was another little story that I wanted to share. So on one of the sites, again, that Belle and I both worked on many years ago, a colleague of ours discovered a medicine bottle, which wasn't unusual. As I had mentioned earlier, we find them all the time. And it had wizard's oil on it. And I had never seen anything like that before, and I haven't seen it again, to be fair. I haven't seen that bottle again. And I can't remember exactly what it said, but it said something's with wizard's oil. And we were really excited about it, and I think it even made the news.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen another bottle of it, but Raquel and I work for different companies now, but we definitely have a picture of either that bottle or of
a similar,
maybe a 19th century ad for it or something. We have a picture up in the office.
Yeah, and it can be traced to Frank Weston. Well, at least one of them can. I don't know if there's multiple different wizard's oils, but one of them was traced from Frank Weston, who came to Melbourne in 1861, and he was a peddler. And I think he joined the opera very soon afterwards. And that's a thing. I don't know. You can go down weird rabbit holes looking at historical research on these things. But he's more well known for that. But he was a peddler in 1861 in Melbourne. And then I did a quick search, and wizard's oil was actually a thing in the US in 1860, 1861. And it was started in Chicago and moved down through the Midwest. And its main, so it was used as a treatment for pneumonia cancer, diphtheria, earache, toothache, as well as other ailments. It was 50 to 70% alcohol. So it was just, 50 or 70%, that's a lot. Ammonia, chloroform, turpentine, sassafras, and cloves were some of the main ingredients of that one in particular, the one in the US. And then I find it funny that in 1861, the same date, the same year, it was starting to peddle through in Melbourne by someone from the US. So I think they had taken this idea.
Yeah.
I don't know what exactly was in the wizard's oil in
From
Melbourne.
Here, yeah.
But
cool.
That's fucking cool.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a very specific, 19th century colonial, British colonial, their way of curing stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I've got. It's a
that
short
was
one
awesome.
today.
Yeah, it was a bit shorter today, but a really fun one.
Really fun one. I know that, we've also found, we find Chinese, ointments as well.
Yeah.
They're really, because during the gold rush, we had a lot of Chinese immigrants come to Australia as well as Europeans. So we often find those. We have found, and I can't quite remember, but it was an object that had been changed or altered in some way to be used as an opiate thing. I can't quite remember exactly what. Yeah,
a bottle
could have been a bottle, but there was something. I have a vague memory about it, and I had no idea what it was. And someone was like, "Yeah, no, that could be a Chinese
smoking."
Yeah, a vessel kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a wild time. Wild time for the colonies. Some crazy shit was ingested. And again, how many kids died?
Oh.
How many children died because they were ingesting ammonia, chloroform, turpentine?
Let's just give them all the poisons we possibly can.
Yeah. And that's again, I felt like we were doing pretty well a couple of thousand years ago in terms of manipulating common plants, and had that kind of innate knowledge about the world around us. And then something went wildly wrong.
Yeah.
It's
the 19th century is just an interesting time.
I'm surprised that we're here today.
Yeah.
Basically. Anyway, that was so interesting.
That was a really good app.
I want to do another one on this.
Yeah. Well, we can, and we probably will. And we say that about
everything.
Many, many episodes we do. We'll do a second one. And one day we will.
It'll happen.
But that's it.
For
22. So we will see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.